I proposed on a Sunday. We were on the shoreline in Maine, where the wind cuts clean and the horizon feels like a secret only we were supposed to see. Her name was Natalie. She laughed when I dropped the ring, nervous hands, and then cried when I asked her to marry me. And then she said yes. She said yes like it was the answer she'd been waiting to give her whole life. I believed her. That night we drove back home in silence. Not because we had nothing to say, but because the kind of joy we shared didn't need words. We held hands at every stoplight. I thought we were in that rare kind of love people write novels about. I thought this was the beginning of a chapter one would never want to end. The next day I went back to work. I told my team. I got congratulated. I smiled, said, "Thank you," and texted Natalie photos of the ring on her finger. She didn't reply. I figured she was out with her sister or shopping for wedding magazines. I didn't know she was in a bar. I didn't know she was sitting across from the man who had broken her heart 4 years earlier. The man she used to call a mistake I had to make. His name was Jake. I only knew him through fragments, an ex who played guitar, cheated on her, and lived in a haze of bar nights and emotional neglect. She told me he was the one who taught her what she didn't want. I never felt threatened by him. She'd said she was over him. But I learned later that it wasn't that simple. I found out what happened 2 weeks later, on a Thursday. Not through Natalie. Not through Jake. Through her best friend, Courtney, who hated me for reasons I never understood. She showed up at my office. Said she needed to talk. I laughed at first, thought it was some kind of prank. She never liked me. Always treated me like I was standing in Jake's shadow even when Natalie swore she wasn't still comparing us. But Courtney looked different that day. Like someone who had seen a crime but wasn't sure if she should report it. "I don't know if I should be telling you this," she said, eyes flicking toward the hallway. "But you need to know who you're marrying." Those were her exact words. They stuck to the inside of my skull like wet cement. Courtney said she saw them at Miller's, the bar 2 blocks from our apartment. Said she thought it was a coincidence at first. Jake ordering whiskey, Natalie sipping vodka soda like she used to when she was younger and more unsure of herself. But then the touching started. The leaning in. The whispering. The looks people share when they forget the rest of the world exists. And then they left. Together. Courtney followed them. She swore she wasn't proud of it. But she said the look on Natalie's face, the way she clung to his arm, she just couldn't let that go unnoticed. They went back to his place. She said, "I waited in my car for 2 hours. She never came back out." I didn't believe her. Not right away. My mind rejected it. Like the body rejects poison at first, thinking it must be a mistake. But Courtney showed me the texts. Natalie had messaged her around 11:30 p.m. that night. "I made a mistake. Don't hate me." When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. It was the first time in my life that I wanted someone to lie to me and they told me the truth. She sat on the couch, curled up like a kid in trouble, eyes red and raw. And when I asked if she slept with Jake the night after we got engaged, she said yes. Not immediately. Not easily. But she said it. There was no speech. No long explanation. Just that one word. Yes. And then a silence that could have swallowed a whole planet. I asked her why. That's the part that still burns. I needed a reason. Some kind of logic, even if it was twisted. She said she didn't know. Said she saw him at the bar and something inside her cracked open. Said she didn't plan it. I wasn't thinking. I didn't want to ruin us. But she did. And she knew it. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the way she described it. Like it had been inevitable. Like she had no control over it. As if love were a drug and Jake had been the relapse. I asked her if she still loved him. She shook her head. I asked if she loved me. She nodded. I don't know which answer hurt more. After she left for work that morning, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the coffee mug she always used. The one with the cracked handle and the chipped lip she refused to throw away. I held it for an hour, trying to convince myself not to smash it. But I didn't. I just set it in the sink and walked out of the apartment. I went to my brother's place. Told him everything. He listened in silence and offered a couch, a whiskey, and no advice. Which is exactly what I needed. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept replaying her words in my head, trying to find a way to make them less destructive. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her in Jake's bed. And not just the image, I imagined her voice, the way she might have laughed with him. The way she used to laugh with me. I wondered if she cried afterward. I hoped she did. Then I hated myself for hoping. I didn't go back to our apartment for 3 days. When I finally did, it still smelled like her shampoo. Vanilla and something floral, like regret wearing perfume. The bed was made, which was unusual. She only made it when she felt guilty, or when her mom was coming over. That morning I guess it had been guilt. I stood in the doorway for a long time. Just staring at it. That bed had seen everything: late-night conversations, stupid fights, lazy Sunday mornings, hangovers, the night we got engaged. It wasn't just a mattress. It was a witness. And now it was evidence. I stripped the sheets off like they were contaminated. Everything she touched felt wrong. Her side of the bathroom counter. Her robe hanging from the back of the door. The fridge magnets from our last vacation. Her handwriting on the sticky notes by the sink. I didn't know how to be in that space anymore without feeling like I was walking through someone else's life. Or worse, through a life that was still technically mine, but had been quietly murdered the night she left with Jake. I should have moved out. But something in me wanted to stay. Not to forgive her. Not even to fix it. I just needed to see it decay. I wanted to feel every inch of what she'd ruined. She came home that night. I didn't expect her to. I thought she'd be too ashamed. Or too comfortable wherever she'd been hiding. But there she was, unlocking the door like it was just another Tuesday. Her face was pale, mascara smudged. She looked like someone who'd been crying for days, but not for me. For herself. "I didn't think you'd be here," she said quietly. I didn't answer. Just watched her walk in like she still belonged. "I've been staying at Courtney's," she added like it mattered. As if she thought I still cared about the logistics. She sat down on the edge of the couch, fingers gripping her knees like she was bracing for impact. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know what I'd say to myself right now." Good. I thought. You shouldn't. But then she said something that twisted the knife all over again. "I didn't go over there thinking I'd sleep with him. I just wanted to talk. I don't know what happened." That sentence. That's the one that broke me open in a way I wasn't prepared for. You don't accidentally cheat. You don't trip and fall into someone's bed. You choose that. You climb every stair leading to that room. You cross every line with your eyes open. What she meant, of course, was that she didn't stop it. And that somehow made it feel worse. The thing about betrayal is, it doesn't hit all at once. It comes in waves. In the quiet. In the spaces between. I went back to work that week and tried to pretend I was okay. My coworkers didn't ask questions, and I didn't offer explanations. I became the guy who stared too long at his computer and nodded absently when people spoke to him. The kind of guy you give space to because you can tell something's off, but you're afraid of knowing what. At night, I'd lie in the bed, our bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many lies had passed through her lips while we were planning our future. I started noticing things I'd missed: the distance in her eyes at dinner, the way she pulled her hand away quicker during movie nights, the polite smiles that used to be real. It all added up. But I hadn't wanted to do the math. I think part of me knew long before she told me. Maybe not consciously. But my gut had been whispering. I just ignored it, because love is louder, at least at first. She stayed away for another week. We texted once. She asked if I wanted her to move out. I said yes. She didn't fight it. She came by while I was at work. Took some clothes, her books, a few framed photos. Left the engagement ring on the kitchen counter. No note. Just the ring. Funny how something that symbolized forever could feel so cheap in the right lighting. I remember staring at that ring for over an hour. I didn't touch it. Just sat at the table, arms crossed, watching it like it might explode. I thought about throwing it out the window. Flushing it. Melting it. Selling it. But in the end, I did nothing. Just left it there. Because that's what it was now, a placeholder for something that never existed. I saw Jake for the first time a few days after she moved her things out. He didn't see me. Or maybe he did and just didn't care. I was parked outside a coffee shop, half in a daze, waiting for a friend who was running late. Jake walked out with a to-go cup in one hand and that same smug strut he always had in pictures Natalie used to show me back when he was just a story. And there she was, 2 steps behind him, laughing. Her laugh wasn't like the one she gave me. It was lighter, almost girlish, like someone pretending not to remember the damage they caused. I don't know what she was laughing at. I don't think it mattered. The point was, she was happy. And it felt like a punch to the gut. I didn't move. I didn't roll down the window. I just watched them walk toward his car, hers now too, I guess, and disappear into it like none of this ever happened. For years, an engagement, a future mapped out together, all erased in a weekend and a few drinks. What stunned me wasn't the betrayal anymore. It was how easily she seemed to pivot. Like I'd been a placeholder until she got permission from herself to go back to what felt more dangerous. More thrilling. More like the chaos she kept buried beneath all that fake domestic bliss. I think that's the part that made it hard to breathe, realizing I'd been the safe option. The one she said yes to because I was steady. Because I had a plan. Because I wasn't Jake. But when it came down to it, she didn't want steady. She wanted to feel like she was 17 again. And Jake offered that. He always did. He never grew up, and neither did her feelings for him. It took me 3 weeks to stop flinching when my phone buzzed. Every time it lit up, I half expected it to be her. A long apology. A breakdown. A confession that it wasn't worth it. That she missed me. That she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. But she didn't say any of that. She didn't say anything at all. The silence became its own language. One I learned to interpret every night alone, staring at the space where her toothbrush used to sit. Where her jacket used to hang. Where her perfume used to cling to the sheets. I started unpacking myself, if that makes any sense. Going back through all the little ways I'd adapted to her over the years. Her taste in music that became mine. Her schedule I adjusted to. The foods I started eating because she loved them. The movies I pretended to enjoy. The hobbies I dropped. It's terrifying how much of yourself you lose without noticing. And it's humiliating how easy it is for the person you gave everything to walk away like you were a detour. I didn't cry. Not really. It's not that I didn't feel it. I just think I was too angry to let the sadness through. Or maybe I knew that once I started crying, I wouldn't be able to stop. And I couldn't afford that. Not in this version of myself. Not after she already took so much. I started running. Every morning before work, I'd throw on some old sneakers and just move. I didn't care about pace or distance. I just needed something to chase. Or maybe something to outrun. The first few days, I kept thinking I'd see her around the next corner. Then I realized something. I didn't want to see her. Not anymore. She didn't deserve the part of me that still longed for her. Natalie reached out on a Tuesday. I knew it was coming. Not because of anything she'd said, but because people like her don't vanish quietly, not unless they're truly at peace with the choice they made. And I knew she wasn't. The text was short. Hey. Can we talk? I stared at it for 10 minutes, wondering if my lack of response could speak louder than any words. But I gave in. I said, sure. Maybe I needed to hear what excuse she'd come up with. Maybe I needed to see her eyes when she said it. We met at a small cafe in the West End. One of those places with mismatched chairs and candles on every table. She looked thinner. Tired. Like someone who hadn't slept right in weeks. I told myself not to care. She smiled like we were old friends. Like she hadn't torched my life and danced through the ashes. "Thanks for meeting me," she said. I nodded, but I didn't say much. She started talking. Said she wasn't with Jake anymore. That it was a mistake. That she'd confused nostalgia with love. That he hadn't changed. That the excitement died the second it became real again. And then she said the thing I knew was coming. "I miss you." I let it hang in the air. Watched her try to swallow the weight of her own choices. There was no makeup thick enough to cover that kind of shame. "I thought I needed to know what was still there," she said, her voice cracking. "But it was gone. It's been gone. I ruined everything." I wanted to scream at her. Or laugh. Or cry. But instead I said the truth. "You didn't ruin everything. Just what we had. And I think part of you wanted to." She looked stunned, like she hadn't expected honesty. "You never wanted this life," I continued. "You wanted the illusion of safety with the option to escape. I just never thought you'd cash that option in the day after you promised me forever." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. I'd been through too much for that to move me now. She asked if we could try again. Start over. No rings. No pressure. Just us. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I saw her for who she really was, not the girl I loved, but the woman who never truly knew how to love without breaking something along the way. I stood up, left some money on the table, and said, "I'm not your safe place anymore." Then I walked out. It's been 8 months since that conversation. I've changed apartments. Got rid of the couch we picked out together. Donated her favorite wine glasses. I don't avoid certain songs anymore. I don't think about Jake. I don't think about her bed. I don't think about the ring. I just breathe. Sometimes I wonder if she ever regrets it, really. But that question doesn't hurt like it used to. Because here's the thing they don't tell you about heartbreak. When it breaks you, it also frees you. I was building a future with someone who was never really in the room. Someone who loved the version of me that fit her story, until I didn't. Now I write my own. And it's not perfect. But at least it's mine.